All right. Hey, gang, it's Kevin Strange back in Strangeville once again. And I have a couple special guests with me today. Today is a special sort of Comic Skate edition show. We have Skinny Matt from the Needle Mover Society, and we have Crypto Comics. And we already have some fellas here in the chat. Ahoy, says Zach Hawkins. Fellas.
Hola.
Hi, Kevin.
Skinny.
Crypto. Hey, Kevin, I wanted to thank you for sending me those lewds, by the way. I wanted to thank you for that.
Pretty spicy stuff, huh?
Man, you got honestly, dude. I watched your feature film Cockhammer the other night, and I wasn't prepared for full frontal male nudity. And the one thing that I really took away from that
double barreled full frontal male nudity.
That's true. There's
Did we lose Crypto? Crypto's audio went out. Skinny,
yeah,
are you with me? Crypto. Shit was just getting good. He was talking about my dick.
He just honey dicked us, man.
He was talking about my dick and then disappeared. Crypto, sir, what about my dick?
He got silent.
What about it? Skinny buddy. Hang on. Crypto's coming back. I'm going to pull him out of the chat and all right, Crypto.
Okay, number one, the two things I learned from my interactions with Kevin Strange. Number one, I never should have trusted a jaguar. Number two, dude, seriously though, man, I watched Cockhammer, and I mean, honestly, man, you got a pretty dick.
Thank you. When I approached my co-star, the guy Joshitsuo Montoya, who plays Nixon to my Hogan in the Strangeville movies, I told him we're gonna do full frontal. He's like, "What does that mean, full frontal?" I said, "Double barrel, full frontal, dicks on screen. We're gonna shave our pubes, so start growing them out now." I told him that about 3 or 4 months before the shooting, the production schedule of the film, so we could get a nice big bush going there downstairs for the scene. And he begged me, please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. Our dicks are not big enough to put on screen. I said, I'm gonna make it look great. We're gonna have the camera right up in there. They're gonna look glorious. They're gonna fill the entire screen. He said
for like a whole minute, no less.
He said the screen is gonna be full of small dicks. but it's two of them. That's the funny part. It's not just a dick on screen, because I had done that in my previous film, Stiff Jobs. It was double barrel full frontal. Yes, I enjoy doing the full frontal male nudity in the films, the dick shots, because so many mainstream movies focus on the boobies. There's plenty. You can pop in any rated R horror flick from the last 50 years and see boobies. There's not very many dicks, so I brought the dicks to the table, and I tried to.
In fact, the only dick I can think of would be in 28 Days Later.
Is there a dick in 28 Days Later?
Yeah, right in the beginning when he wakes up in the hospital. He's nude.
Oh, good, nice.
Yeah, you see that wrinkly, hairy ball sack.
I'm gonna have to watch that again for the ball sack, just the beginning.
There you go.
Then I'll turn it off. Fellas, we're here today to talk not about my dick, as much as I appreciate that, but we're here to talk about some of your projects. Let's start by talking about Legends of the Lone Wolf, which you two are both credited as writers on. Let's talk about that.
Skinny, I'd rather keep talking about your dick, but I guess if you want to,
we could talk about my dick all day.
You like pizza?
I like pizza on my dick.
I bet your dick looks like a cheese pizza with everything on it.
I tried to take that aesthetic into the comic books too. I don't know if you've leafed through those little periodicals yet, but there's a lot of dicks in the comics.
After Cockhammer, would you leaf through your comic books? I mean, You were limited with film. I can't imagine what you put in a comic book.
Zach says, "Woo, dick time's over."
He wears a crown of dicks.
Skinny, are you there, buddy?
Yeah.
What do
I'm
you-
here. I'm just taking everything in.
What do you have to say about Legends
He's
of the Long Wall?
he's Google searching for your dick right now,
Yeah.
dude.
I
He heard me say pretty dick, and he was just like,
I'm
I
on
can
the
share those
prowl.
with.
That Cockhammer is it's my magnum opus. I star as both Hogan and Cockhammer. I directed the film. I wrote the film. I shot many of the scenes in the film that I'm not in. Of course, I edited the film, and it was the absolute crowning achievement of my artistic career. And all anybody ever talks about is my dick.
It's the most profane film ever made, I think, to be honest.
See, that just means you need to put your dick in more movies.
Did you notice that when Cockhammer pulls his dick out and starts smashing it off the metal altar near the end of the film, that is not my actual penis. That is a prosthetic penis.
Yeah, I did notice. Yeah. No one could abuse their own penis like that and walk away.
Those big thick gloves on, and he's like, "Oh, it's hilarious."
Oh, it was so profane, and you did. And I'm gonna be honest, you did such a good job at acting, Kevin, that my friend Josh and I were just like, wow, this guy might have a screw loose. And I was like, well, let's watch one of these behind the scenes things. And I click it on, and it's just like, here's Kevin, like, well, actually, how we're going to film this scene is quite fascinating. And I'm just like, what happened to the Juggalo?
What happened to the fucking weirdo?
That's when I knew it was. That's when I knew it was art. I'll defend it till I die.
I was a seasoned veteran of film by that point. I think I had made 5 feature films up to that point. So there were many opportunities for me to learn how to act like a spazzing, drug-addled weirdo on film. What's really funny is if you're actually present, if you're actually there on set when I'm doing Hogan, and I'm directing the scene, I go from, spasming fucking weirdo to, now let me see that cut, like super serious. Let me see that cut. Let me make sure we shot that right. Is it in focus? How's the lighting? Did the sound get picked up correctly? All right, let me do this take again.
Are you gonna make another film, Kevin?
I don't know.
How many have you made so far?
7.
Jeez.
There's 7 films. There's 7 films in the Hack Movies canon.
Wow.
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the resurgence because I haven't made a movie in 10 years. I'm enjoying bringing the characters back as in the comic book universe. I have a lot more. It's weird because it's not easier because I'm drawing them my fucking self and I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. So it's on one hand a lot harder than making a movie, and on the other hand a lot easier than making a movie. It's a lot more labor intensive for me personally to draw every panel and color every panel, but it's, as far as logistically, it's far simpler and less stressful than trying to corral all my friends together to be in these ridiculous scenes and do these awful things on film that we do.
Well, I would love to see what you put out when you finally get like a Canon camera or like a Panasonic GH4 or something like that can really film something that looks more cinematic.
I have access to one, and I've been shooting little promo videos for the Indiegogo campaign with it.
Oh, good.
But they're basically just me. They're just static shots of me. I haven't utilized it to its full extent, and I do have an idea for another Nixon and Hogan short film. I don't know if you dig deep into the special features on the Cockhammer DVD. There are a series of Nixon and Hogan short films. Butt Hash is a good one. I don't think Nixon and Hogan and Time Travel Sucks didn't get made until after Cockhammer. That one's my favorite of the short films. But there's a bunch of Nixon and Hogan short films that are on each of the DVDs, and we would make like a new short film for each of the feature films that we did. And I've got an idea for a new Nixon and Hogan short film to promote the comic book, but I'm hesitant to get back into the film game because I'm a much older man now. At almost 40, it's much harder to do no budget indie production than it was when I was a young, virile, in shape 25-year-old. Things were a lot.
You don't know you can't do it back then. Now
Exactly.
you can't do it.
Exactly. And honestly,
and your dick's all wrinkly now too, so you're
way
gonna get a
different.
stunt cock.
It's a lot more callous because I've never used. I don't use lube when I masturbate. So the older I get, the more gnarled the ween becomes.
Is this now? Are all these movies for juggalos, or was Cockhammer like the crowning achievement of juggalo films? I can't imagine anyone who's not a juggalo watching that.
I managed to transcend that culture. Juggalo culture was a lot different 10 years ago than it is now. It's kind of just meth addicts today. It's kind of like it's kind of meth addicts and guys that look like they sleep in a dog bed.
It's kind of like comics gay.
Well, that's a great segue. It's almost like you're a professional, like you host your own show called the Needle Movers Society.
I can attest to juggalos being cooler 10 years ago, man. I was
even 15 years ago, even 20 years ago. I mean, it used to mean something more than going to a festival and doing meth for 4 days. I really don't associate with that culture at all anymore. It was an influence on the films for sure, but I don't consider my films juggalo movies. I consider it an aesthetic that I put into my films that other films lacked. I think I think most mainstream culture ignores juggalo culture, other than a couple of memes about magnets. But I think that there's a lot of funny stuff there, and I think that stoner culture in general there's a lot of comedy to mine there. That a few films like of course Cheech and Chong in the 70s took the piss out of stoner culture, and then you had the Friday movies of the 90s, and then what's Dave Chappelle's stoner movie? Half-Baked was like the pinnacle of like totally making fun of stoner culture. And then there haven't really been any huge Seth Rogen and the other fuck have tried to sort of make some stoner movies, and I've to middling success. They've been okay, but they haven't really touched. And I don't know that I guess Seth Rogen proclaims to be a stoner, but they don't really. Like, you have to live stoner culture to really get the nuance of when you get somebody
rich Hollywood stoners.
Yeah, when you get somebody like Nixon being like, "You ate all my pizza rolls, and my mom is coming home from the double, from her double that she's working. She's gonna be pissed." You gotta have lived that life to really understand what it's like to be that dirt fucking poor, and how much.
Well, I want to plug my Juggalo movie.
Do it.
I made a documentary 10 years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, I've been involved in the professional wrestling business for a long time, and 10 years ago, some indie wrestlers I know, and I myself had an opportunity to go to a town in Central California called Clear Lake, California, for a wrestling show, and this show was going to feature Violent J, Too Tough Tony, Corporal Robinson, Pogo the Clown, Suburban Commandos, a bunch of dudes, and we show up, and like the guy who's putting on the show, the promoter, he tells us like, "Oh yeah, I got a big house, everybody can sleep here, don't worry about it." We get there, dude, it's like a 1-bedroom apartment, bro.
Oh,
and it is filthy. This dude literally had a closet where he had been storing his garbage because he was too lazy to take it out to the street.
Oh.
And the toilet, dude, was janky and it didn't work, dude, and it got overflowed. And like the dude who overflowed it wouldn't fix it, and the guy who owned the place wouldn't fix it. It's called Wrestling with Disaster.
Now are all
it's for wrestling fans, but it's more for juggalos.
Are all the wrestlers trying to sleep in this 1-bedroom apartment?
No, thank God. When Corporal Robinson, so like that's the thing is we're just like, are Corporal Robinson, Too Tough Tony, and Violent J gonna even show up? Because like as soon as we get there, it's like, oh, Violent J's not gonna be here. He got snowed in. He can't leave freaking Colorado. And we're just like, oh no, dude, we've just literally driven all this way for maybe nothing. And I don't want to spoil how it ends because it is literally absolutely fascinating. If you're a wrestling fan, it's absolutely fascinating. If you're a juggalo, you'll love it because we have like a half an hour shoot video with Corp and Too Tough within the movie. And
for people that don't know,
yeah,
who they are, they are two of the mainstays of Juggalo Championship Wrestling. And if you didn't know that, ICP actually own their own wrestling organization and are wrestlers in their own right. They've wrestled for WWF, they've wrestled for WCW, they've wrestled for. Did they do a small stint in Impact in TNA?
Yeah,
also?
they did. Yeah, they did.
So they pretty much wrestled for everybody at some point in time, and people don't know that. People don't know how invested in the wrestling culture that ICP are. And I think that's where is that how you found ICP, or did you find them like on the radio?
No, I would have found Ice. I mean, before that, they had like released the Ringmaster and the Riddle Box before they were in WWF, and so I was like familiar and aware. Santa
That
Claus
they
is a
existed.
fat bitch. I had the LP for Santa Claus is a fat bitch and the single. But ultimately, it would be like once you see them like in the flesh. Once they got rid of the dreadlocks, I was more interested. And so when they showed up with the oddities in WWF back in the day, that was what drew me in.
So there was this. It was probably all happened within a year and a half. It was they got signed to Disney, kicked off Disney, became MTV News #1 story. This weird clown rap group gets kicked off Disney for having violent lyrics. They blew up. Their album came out on Island Records and sold a couple million copies, and then they were suddenly in WWF within a year of that. And it was like, and WWF was as big as it has ever been and probably ever will be at the time. That was like peak Monday Night War era, where it was like WCW and WWF were like doing like 7.0 and 8.0 ratings, where which is a lot for prime time, especially for a wrestling show like a sports program like that. Whereas today, what do they pull today on USA Network for Monday Night Raw? Do they pull
maybe a 3?
Low ones? Yeah, 3 at a peak, mostly ones throughout their 5.5-hour broadcast or however fucking long it is today. So I mean, you're talking 7 to 8 times the audience. If I don't know how that metric works, if an 8 is 8 times more than a 1 in the Nielsen ratings, I'm not sure how that works.
I remember like there was one week where they even beat out the NBA Finals, and people were just like, "Wow, this is like a 10 in the rating for wrestling."
It was nuts, but it was great. It was great wrestling. You had Hollywood Hogan and the NWO over in WCW, and you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. You had Triple H and Shawn Michaels in DX, and DX was everywhere. You could not be. Every high school in the Midwest, probably in the entire country, had kids walking around in DX shirts.
Yes. Same out
and NWO, DX and NWO. I mean, that was the rivalry. They would literally fight each other. Like DX would show up outside the WCW taping and actually do skits outside of the rival promotion to air on their promotion. So it's USA Network is airing outside of where WCW is filming for their segments between matches. It was nuts, and people ate it up. Everybody was into pro wrestling at the time, and ICP managed to pull themselves into that company right around that same era. You might know exactly better than me. I'm going completely off memory. I haven't looked at the Monday Night Wars or ICP's involvement in the WWF in 20 years, so that's going off 20-year memory. I think the oddities and all that was the same time, wasn't it? During the peak Monday Night Wars.
Sorry, you broke up. Do you think what was the same time?
The oddities and ICP, that was during the Monday Night Wars?
Yeah, the oddities would have been during the time when like WWF was losing the war,
right?
And then after
when they were doing like fake Diesel and fake Razor Ramon,
it would have been like it would have been a little after that. Like they had definitely switched over to more mature content, but I don't think they were quite winning yet. And then, of course, eventually they did win, and they held on to it. And then, they let ICP go because that's something you have for a few months, and it's fun, and then it's time to move on.
Well, plus ICP had a whole nother career that they needed to pay attention to.
Yeah, but instead they just went to WCW, and like that's when they started wrestling was there because they didn't wrestle in WWF at all. I don't recall.
They just sort of wrapped the oddities out, didn't they?
Yeah, they were like managers, right?
Yeah. think they
But then in
wrestled a little bit.
WCW, they wrestled with Vampiro and the Great Muta, I think, was maybe with them.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't Muta. It was definitely Vampiro and the Misfits.
Yeah, the
And
Misfits actually.
I was surprised that ICP didn't hold big time. Shaggy got the cruiserweight because it just seemed like, better than David Arquette.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like everyone else, I don't think the wrestling culture respected them at all. Nobody respected the rapping clowns, and I don't think that they, even though I wouldn't necessarily say they were good wrestlers, but they were definitely as good as any of the low mid card wrestlers in WCW. I mean, they did back then. Violent J wasn't a fat piece of shit, and he could actually he could do a couple things. He had his moonsault that he could do, but Shaggy could bump as good as anybody.
Yeah, Shaggy could bump. That's why I was kind of surprised they didn't just give him the cruiserweight title for a week or something, just to, and then then you have destroy him, and then put Vampiro into that feud to, get revenge for Shaggy. Anyways, this is quite a dissertation on Juggalos.
That's all right, and pro wrestling, which is two things that most people hate. But I just to finish that off, I was really happy to see Vampiro get at least, and it seems like it might be the end for him based on recent things I've seen about him. But I was really happy to see that. What was the Lucha organization?
Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground. I was really happy to see him working the announce table, but then also get to be in sort of a program with their Pentagon Junior, which was their basically big star, big heel star. Was he the heel or was he the face? I don't really know.
He was the heel, yeah. But it was just like, it's so cool, so cool looking and so talented that people want to root for him, even though he's the bad guy.
Yeah, a really cool finisher, and it's such an awesome look with his skull face and lucha mask and all that. Speaking of luchadors, you got a luchador comic book coming up.
I do, October 1st, Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun. I kind of fell in love with the whole luchador genre. My entire life I've been fascinated by masks, not just wrestling masks, but masks from all different cultures. And so as a little kid, when I saw my first masked wrestler, that's what sucked me in and drew me into wrestling. Was like, it's not just two big tough men combating each other, but all of a sudden there's a guy wearing a mask, and when you're 3 years old, that's scary, but also you're just like fascinated because you've never seen it in your life. And that's kind of what got me into pro wrestling as a little kid. And then was it
Mexican lucha wrestling, or was it the luchador mid card on WCW?
My name Dave Sierra. Dave Sierra wrestled in Portland Wrestling. He also was very popular down in Puerto Rico for Carlos Colon's promotion. Up here, though, he wrestled under 3 different masks. He was the Destroyer, then he was the Assassin, and lastly, he was Top Gun, all in Don Owens' promotion here in Portland. And so, I always tell people that was my favorite wrestler as a kid, was Top Gun and the Assassin. And it was all Dave Sierra. You find out later in life, guy. But the Mexican wrestling, what got me into that was actually, I was at a Circuit City. You remember Circuit City?
Oh yeah.
It was like a Best Buy for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
And
commercials.
They had like this 2-pack of luchador movies from the 70s, and most people probably don't know this, but Luchadores Enmascarados is a genre of film in Mexico, and there are like over 100 of these movies made.
Yeah.
It's basically like no budget superhero films, and we can't afford to have superpowers, so we just get luchadors because they're like superheroes. And I mean, they fight everything. They fight mummies and werewolves and witch women and medical assassins. I mean, you name it. El Santo Mil Máscaras and Blue Demon fought it. And so that was kind of what inspired me. And I was just like, this is a really fun genre. Little kids would love this. And then right after that, Mucha Lucha came out, this old cartoon, right? And that was popular for maybe 3 years with kids. And so I kind of had this idea to, modernize and Americanize some specifically Mexican in nature, because I mean, quite honestly, every Mexican I ever met lived in Oregon. So I was just like, well, all the Mexicans live here now, so why not make a movie about 3 luchadors living in America and this coven of vampires starts abducting. Not only are they using the Mexicans for food, but they come across something in the blood of some Mexican women that allows them to walk in the sunshine temporarily.
Okay.
And so they start abducting these, these beautiful young women with killer bodies from the Hispanic community, so that they figure out the secret behind their blood, so that they can permanently walk in the daylight. Because if vampires can do that, they can just take over the whole world. They don't have to live in secrecy anymore.
Right.
And they have a state senator named Ruben Marcos, who has, gleefully sold out his own people in order to increase his own wealth and power. And, what are the police going to do about it? What happens when an illegal immigrant or an undocumented immigrant disappears? Like, nothing happens. It's not like these people have green cards or social security cards.
Right.
You just assume they went back to Mexico.
Right.
The vampires have been taking them, and it's going to take young Megawatt and his friends, Tiger Shark and Goldenheart, to put a stop to these dastardly bloodsuckers. And it's a really colorful book. It kind of has that, a more detailed Hanna-Barbera sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, I really like. If you can't tell from my comics, I really like that cartoony style, and your illustrator has captured that that cartoony style perfectly. I think that there's actually there's sort of two aesthetics that are popular in indie comics today, and that's McFarlane-esque, Rob Liefeld-esque 90s Image Comics aesthetic, and then there's manga. And I really like to see this more American cartoon style of comics get a little rub, and that's what immediately drew me to your comic when I saw the promo stills and the trailer for Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun was how well it captured that cartoon style and how colorful and bright the comic looks like it's going to be, which is very cool to me as a fan. That style draws me in.
And that was intentionally, that was done by design. I'm not like a lot of writers. Everything I write is a screenplay because I've worked in film and television. And so I decided to take the screenplay and adapt it to a comic book. But as a director, I already see every shot. As a cinematographer and a camera operator, I know the shots I want.
You're speaking my language, brother.
It can be a little difficult for some artists to work with a writer who's acting like a director, because I want to make sure that what I want is what I get. If I'm paying for this, I want what I want.
There's sort of a rivalry between writers and illustrators in comics, where some illustrators want creative freedom to look at your script and then take creative liberties to sort of position the camera and create the camera directions however they choose to, and to split the panels up as much as they want or as little as they want. And they believe they are the sort of creative force, and all you're doing as the writer is telling the story. So what you're saying is as a primarily a visual artist and director in the film industry, you are basically asking your visual artist to create exact storyboards for your movie, but the storyboards are going to be the final art and the movie's going to be a comic book, right?
Yeah, that's basically how I look at it. Yeah, I'm of the belief that the writer is the creator god. My brain came up with this idea. My brain visualizes it. My brain has to take it from being, just in the ether to being fleshed out on paper. And it is the job of the film director or the artist to interpret my creation. Not to, they're not creating their own thing. You're interpreting someone else's creation. And so I just want to make sure it's done as faithfully as possible. And I've learned over the last year that the best way to do that is to hire a foreign artist. American artists seem to be the type that want to, this is my, basically they want to take your idea and make it theirs. And I'm not really interested.
Yeah, and that's a whole discussion to have, because if you ask any, like you said, American illustrator or Western illustrator, they'll tell you that a comic book doesn't exist without them. They are the creative genius behind the work, and the writer is just the dude that writes the dialogue. The writer will tell you that they are the creative genius behind the project, and the illustrator is just drawing the pictures the way the script is telling them to do so. And it's this sort of like I said, it's sort of a rivalry. I don't know a better way to phrase it, but if we ask ourselves what are considered, say, the 10 best graphic novels of all time, every single one of them, you will be able to name the writer, or if you name the artist, it's because he's also the writer. You can in almost no instance can the average comic book fan name the illustrator of say the illustrator of The Watchmen. You know that Alan Moore wrote The Watchmen. I don't personally know who illustrated Watchmen. I've heard his name several times, but it never sticks with me. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe I made that up.
Dave Gibbons, he did it. But it's because the art of Watchmen, while it's passable, it's not so mind blowing that it takes over and it is overemphasized compared to the story of Watchmen. What compels us to put Watchmen in the top 10 comics of all time is because of the vast, sweeping, epic story that's being told, which is in the hands of the writer, not the illustrator. The illustrator created the visuals to go along with this epic story that only Alan Moore could tell. And so that's where I come down on, and I do both. So I write, I draw, and so coming from sort of that middle neutral platform, I always say, illustrators, you guys are great, and some guys, like my favorite illustrator today is Trad Moore. If you guys are familiar with him, he's doing the Silver Surfer Black series right now. You guys familiar with him?
Yeah,
he just has a fucking crazy visual style, and it just I want everything. I want everything the man does, because he has his style just gets me off visually.
Yeah,
but I'm always going to fall on the side of the writer and say that a writer will make or break a great comic book. The visuals aren't going to do that.
That's correct. I agree with that 100%. The artist can make the writer's story even better, or can absolutely kill the book. But, well, that's not even true. Like, the artist cannot make the story, an artist can't take a crap story and make it good just because he drew it well. It's still a crap story that everybody's going to forget about.
And I think for a great story, I think for a great story, less than serviceable art doesn't necessarily kill it. You can have something with a compelling story and just barely passable art that's still considered good because of how compelling the story is. Mm-hmm. The story is everything, in my opinion. The story is everything.
And speaking of stories, you know who else writes a hell of a story? Skinny Matt from the Needle Mover Society, who hasn't said a word because I hijacked his stream with you.
Oh, that's okay. I was listening. I'm happy. I'm not crying.
I knew we would be digging deep into wrestling culture. I was hoping that Skinny was also a wrestling fan. It turns out he doesn't know anything about wrestling, so he hasn't been able to.
I mean, when I was growing up, I wore a Stone Cold and a Mankind shirt, and I had a couple of action figures, and that's about the extent of it. I grew up.
That's all you really need to know. The Rock, Stone Cold, and Mankind.
Well, I mean, if you start talking about like Ally McBeal or ER, I know all about that.
George Clooney on ER was so dreamy, wasn't he?
I mean, but seriously, Skinny, do you feel that the Dancing Baby should make a comeback?
Yeah.
People watching are just like, "What's the Dancing Baby?" It's like, it was a craze. It was a big craze from '95.
I don't even think they should upgrade the visuals either. Just bring it back as is.
Tell us about you. You write a hell of a yarn, and you wrote a yarn for a comic book that is funding right now on Kickstarter called Legends of the Lone Wolf. You wrote the ash can that comes with the. Is there just one ash can that comes with it?
Well, yeah, for current backers, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. I remember there was a promotion for another ash can, I think, for the people who got on board before it was funded. But I don't know. I smoked too
Correct.
much weed
That
to
was mine.
remember the logistics of
Explain this.
Anyway,
So,
you did.
I was like, well, I'm willing to include an ash can for a project I'm working on called Vestry, with a young man named Jakob Sebesta, who some people might know in the community as Shabby. And this kid is in Prague, near Prague, and he's been like working on this story for a dang year. And he asked myself if I would help write it, and I said, yeah, let me bring my buddy Slick Jimmy from Little Girl Lethal with me, and we can kind of write this thing together. And because Jimmy is very talented also, and people, when they get Little Girl Lethal, they will recognize how talented he is.
I'm a backer. I'm a backer, but I'm also a pervert. So
I can say, like, if you appreciate Whiskey Paint's artwork on that book, Jimmy's writing ability is on par with the art. So you're going to get something special. And I helped Jimmy with the he was having trouble with the backup story on Little Girl. And so I said, well, let me give it a read. And so we kind of crafted the backup story together. And that is, I think Trey Torres is like, he's got the last, like, there's a 2-page spread at the end, and that's all he's got left to finish. But it's like one of those big George Lopez, like, there's 50 characters in this like spread, and so it's just like, it's gonna take him a minute. But that's all that's left for the book before it goes to the printers. So it's almost there, and you're gonna love it. But anyway, so I said, well, Shabby, like, why don't we take a few pages out of Vestry and do a little black and white ash can that we give away with Legends of the Lone Wolf, so those backers see something that's coming up, which I think is important in like this independent comic thing. Is everybody's so busy, just like so worried that, oh, somebody's gonna make $50 that they could have had. That could have been my $50. It's like, dude, like, we could all have $5,000 if everyone would just promote each other and not worry about what they're gonna get from it in the back end. Yeah,
For sure.
Or maybe I'm
For
just
sure.
idealistic because I'm an only child, so I didn't grow up with competition like that.
Well, I'm not an only child. I have a lot of siblings, and I am as idealistic as you are, if not more idealistic. I was talking about on my show yesterday just how romantic I am about art, about business, about relationships, and I often get blindsided by business partners or relationship partners or friends because I have like a Leonidas from 300 view of life, where I believe that a man's word is a man's word, and a man's loyalty is a man's loyalty, and those things aren't fuck withable. And then I find out that most people don't live life like that. But anyway.
Yeah,
True, yeah.
It's integrity. It's so rare. It should be considered a superpower at this point.
Yeah, I agree. So
Doug was like, yeah, let's do that ash can. And then Skinny was like, well, hell, I'm going to do an ash can too. And he was like, I'm going to write an original story. And I was just like, shit, you're killing what I was doing. But he's got this awesome thing with 6-scale combat. And like if it wasn't like, I already have my next Legends of the Lone Wolf story written, and it's 86 friggin' pages. It's massive. But without Skinny working with 6-scale combat, I wouldn't have an artist for it, because I was just like, I need someone with a really unique style for the story I want to tell. And Skinny's working with 6-scale combat, and he shows us the Banjo Man. Is it called the Banjo Man, Skinny? What do we call it?
It's just called Banjo Man.
Okay, great. And the artwork is like phenomenal and so distinct that you're gonna instantly, it's just instantly recognizable, this artist's style.
I have allegedly seen this comic book, allegedly, and I think it's fucking awesome, fantastic. Am I allowed to say that, Skinny?
Yeah, I could actually. I was going to look up a page.
Do it.
That's already been made public.
For those non-comic fans that are watching, because a year ago, I thought an ash can was an Afghan. And when Doug Tenaple was talking about doing an ash can for his campaign, I thought he meant that he was going to print Bigfoot Bill onto an Afghan. And so many people were so excited to get a fucking blanket with Bigfoot Bill on it. I couldn't understand why people were so thrilled about this blanket. And I eventually looked up. I was like, no, it's not. They're not saying Afghan. They're saying Ashcan. And I finally looked it up. And that is such an antiquated, weird inside baseball term that I think we should just call it a mini comic. It's a mini comic.
Well, yes, this is the difference. Is Skinny is not making an ash can. Skinny is making a mini comic.
Well,
It is different.
I do have other stuff in the works in this universe, so it is still a taste of what is to come.
So this is 6th Scale Combat's art here for this page.
Yeah, this is one of the splash pages.
This is gorgeous.
Look at it.
And it looks beautiful, man.
I'll never be able to draw like that. I could draw for 20 more years and never be able to do that. That's amazing. It's good stuff.
But
Tell us, Skinny, tell us about Legends of the Lone Wolf. What is it?
Well, I mean, it's an anthology where a bunch of writers and artists came together to do different stories with Doug Garrett's character, Wolf. And it's been fantastic. Doug's got a story in there. James McCran, he's one of the artists on another story with Joey Tremblay, which is going to be fantastic because you got Gary Busey with Wolf. It's one of the funniest things I've read in a long time. But James is also doing his own story, which I'm in the process of lettering right now as well. And so many talented people, because you got Matt on there too with his, 38 pages?
38 pages. That's twice the size of a regular comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome. How did you guys all hook up with Doug? Because this is Doug Garrett's Lone Wolf universe. How did you guys hook up with him to get involved in this project?
Well, I hooked up with Doug when he first kind of came onto the scene, and I found him on, I think it was Mike Miller's Blacklist universe or whatever, Facebook group, something like that. And I hooked up with him, and we started streaming together, and then he started talking about, I want to do a comic book. And then, I've been with him since he started, making it, and he's freaking talented, man. He works hard as hell.
And you want to talk about somebody with integrity. Doug is one of those guys that has remained steadfast in his belief system, regardless of who in the indie comics world and culture and the culture of Comicsgate, regardless of who it's pissed off. And I've always respected Doug for that. He does his best to keep it about comic books and to keep himself out of the drama and keep himself from being used as a sort of pawn for super chats for some of the bigger Comicsgate guys.
He's great with customer service too, man. Like I think it was today somebody had bought one of his books on his Etsy shop, and they forgot to use the promo code "Quality Takes Time" to get a discount. Doug ended up canceling the order and then messaged them and like, hey, you need to use the promo code. So that way you can actually get, like, Doug could have just walked away being like, you want to pocket this money. No.
Yeah, that only takes a second to do also. When you're a smaller, when you're sort of a smaller creator, there's no reason not to take extreme care with each and every customer you have. If you have customers in the few hundreds, you can personally deal with them on a one-on-one basis. When you start to get into customers into the thousands and tens of thousands, it's harder to deal with them on a one-on-one basis. It's still possible, but it takes a large part of your day to do that. But when you're an indie creator that's dealing with customers in the hundreds or single thousands, you can take the time to personalize every communication with them and to make sure they get exactly what they ordered. And what I like to do personally, I have so many books and movies and all these different promotional items that I've had all over for the last 15 years, that almost every order that comes through, I try to throw something extra, some little thing extra into each order, and then I write a personalized handwritten note to each individual order to let them know that I touched their items and that I personally appreciate what they've out of all of the media. You've got Netflix, you've got iTunes, you've got Amazon Prime. There's endless amounts of entertainment to consume, that you actually took the time to order my entertainment, my product, my content. I I have to go out of my way to show you appreciation for that. We're so inundated with information today that every customer is special, and I'm glad to hear that Doug does the same.
Yeah, he's excellent, man. I can't speak highly of him enough. And that's why I did the ash can when he approached me. He's like, "Hey, you want to do an ash can?" I said, "Hell yeah!" And he's like, "It can be whatever you want, pretty much." I was like, "Okay." So I did a complete satire and parody of it.
Oh, it's funny as fuck. It is so fucking funny and on point. And I guess, this stream has been so positive and upbeat and high energy. I really don't want to take it in this direction, but I think it's necessary with the three of us together here. It's necessary to point out the fact that a year ago, when we were all, I don't know how long you guys have been involved in the Comicsgate indie comics movement, but I sort of got involved. I first heard my first interaction. So I've known John Delaraz for years but because I'm also a fiction writer. I've written a ton of novels and short story collections, and I've known John Delaraz as one of the guys that was really pushing back against the total and complete Marxist transformation of the science fiction community, and especially the Hugo Awards, and how they were basically the gatekeepers of the Hugo Awards were basically saying white males are no longer allowed to be nominated or win awards. They've won enough awards. That 40 years of white males is plenty. We need to have representation for women and people of color, and that's it. And John Delaraz was one of the main guys to come up and be like, dude, merit is the only thing that should matter for a fucking award.
Yeah, I mean, Mary Shelley is a fucking household name.
Yeah, exactly. J.K. Rowling is one of the highest, highest paid writers of all time. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I knew who John Delaraz was already, but I actually didn't pay attention when he started talking about comics and Comicsgate. I only fell into Comicsgate when I saw the news that Richard C. Meyer had his Antarctic Press contract pulled, and he was no longer going to be able to put his indie-funded comic book into stores. And that's really when I started to jump into the scene and started to sort of learn who the names were. And I started throwing money towards crowdfunded comics. So that was maybe June or July of last year. Well, when did you guys get involved?
In Comicsgate, shit,
Yeah.
It's been a while, man. I've been hanging around since 2016. I actually left Comicsgate, or stopped declaring it and everything, and I think I publicly did that November last year. But it just got too much of the bullshit, man. Like, I don't know. I don't like hypocrisy. I mean, tit for tat.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. As I said, just in the span of 14 months from when I got involved and started throwing money towards indie projects to now, just how much the culture of indie comics has changed. And it's sad to see that just a couple of pro comics creators sort of created the same kind of petty social gatekeeping systems that mainstream comics and mainstream film and mainstream fiction have already put in place. And it's bizarre to see a bunch of self-professed conservatives use the same gatekeeping techniques that the self-professed liberals have been doing for years. It's really disheartening to see this happening to indie comics as controlled by a group of people that call themselves conservatives. It just goes to show that political affiliation really has nothing to do with online politics. Like the social politics of online movements ends exactly the same way, no matter who is in charge of it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's resort to pure cannibalism. I mean, you got people taking shots at each other when they should be praising one another.
As Crypto said earlier, if we were all promoting each other, none of this would happen.
Like if, people actually sat there and been like, hey, John's got a lot of great books already out. He's awesome. He puts out quality books. They're all already out there. And, they're not going to break your bank either. I mean, he's great representation for Comicsgate if they were actually serious.
Yeah, I agree. And John,
quality books, but apparently it's about money.
John's a very snarky dude. He reminds me a lot of myself, and I went through a period where I was absolutely firing back at anybody in the fiction community that said anything remotely negative towards me. I got sick of the scare tactics that online communities use to try to silence opinions that they don't like, or to try to stop the rise of growing popularity of a particular creator if they don't like the way they act socially, or they don't like the politics that the person personally holds. And once they started kind of turning that beam towards me and trying to police me, I kind of did what John does. And if we're grade school kids and we're on the playground and you throw a rock in my direction, I'm going to come up and smash you in the face with a bigger rock. I don't care if you hit me with the rock or not. Your intention was to intimidate me, and I will fucking obliterate you for trying to intimidate me. And and so people often say, like, John, you start so much shit. You only think he starts shit because he ends it real fucking quick. Yeah. He goes out of his way to absolutely put a stop to the nonsense as fast as he can. Yeah. And I respect him for that. And but he gets a bad reputation because people see him in these squabbles, but it's always him ending it, never him starting it.
Well, like, you can even look at it the other way too, because have you ever seen like Timothy Lim or Mark Pellegrini go at anybody on Twitter? No. Never.
Right. They don't ever go
after a fucking lick of shit. All they're doing is promoting books, being nice to customers, talking about how grateful they are to people. But they're the enemy.
The enemy of a few select people at the top of the Comicsgate indie comics food chain that have declared themselves the gatekeepers of the community. And it's just, the only reason I wanted to bring it up was just because we're all three involved in it, and we all three have sort of moved away from that Comicsgate designation. And many people, I think most people have. I was saying to a group of guys yesterday that it's like there was a lot of intimidation coming down on Mitch Breitweiser yesterday, and it's sad to see Mitch kind of back down a little bit publicly, because what I said was the momentum is in his favor. So many people have left the designation of Comicsgate as a sort of banner with which they present their comic books to the world at large. There's been such a mass exodus that the momentum is on Mitch's side. He could easily step away. He could easily step away and say, I don't want anything to do with these people ever again. And
his support would have blown up if he replied to that and said, what the fuck are you doing trying to shame a writer who's worked for me for liking a tweet you don't like?
For liking a tweet you don't like, which is ridiculous. And there's no reason to go, most people, this is inside baseball, and most people aren't going to even understand what we're talking about. I'm not providing complete context to it for a reason. There's no reason to yell out names and start drama with particular individuals. I just thought it was interesting that the three of us had once been very vocal supporters of Comicsgate and have just had to completely abandon it because of the toxic sort of gatekeeping that sort of befalls sort of all online communities given enough time. Crypto, do you have anything you want to throw in to add to any of that?
No, I don't. Yeah, I could start. I found Comicsgate in probably late February or early March of last year. I found Zach and Cummings and those guys, and Ethan was like, he was basically like, I think it was right before he left DC or got fired, whatever happened there. Amicably parted ways with DC, and he was kind of like in that free fall, and it was like, am I Comicsgate? Am I not Comicsgate? He didn't know. I had known Ethan because I was collecting Ethan's comic books before anybody gave a crap about Ethan. When he was making Cyberfrog at Harris way back in the day, he lived in Milwaukee, Oregon. He had done a cover art for a local comic book company in Vancouver, Washington, that's not around anymore, called Goblin Studios. And so, like, my knowledge of Ethan and my support of Ethan goes way back. And so when Ethan was like declared himself comics guy, I was just like, oh shit, this is big. And then like all of a sudden it's like there's Mitch, there's Malin, there's Brightweiser, and then like the icing on the cake, Doug TeNapel comes in, and you're just like, this is an entertainment movement. It's
a powerhouse. It was a powerhouse movement.
A conservative entertainment movement too, which is long overdue in this society. And then when he had Billy Tucci on the show that one time, that was like, for me, that was just like huge, because she was massive in the 90s. And Billy was that last piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. Like, that's what we needed. Just one more. And unfortunately, Billy, I think, got so much pressure after that first stream that he just had to distance himself. And when that happened, like, that was a red flag that went up. It was like, something's not right here, because there's no reason his own self-made man would distance himself this much. And I think it was all that stuff over when Late Night Comics was disrespectful to Gavin's wife or widow. I think that was what caused Billy to kind of retreat. And I think people told him, if you mess around with Ethan Van Sciver, you're not going to find work in the comics at large. And so he distanced himself pretty far there, and that was a red flag. And another major red flag was do you remember when Ethan flew to Arkansas to meet with like Mitch and Mark Pellegrini? And it was basically like, Ethan wasn't saying this, but the vibe was like, holy crap, they're going to get together and they're going to start the next Image Comics. This is about to happen.
Right.
And you never heard anything about that meeting after Ethan got back. And I was just like, and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. And it just never happens. It's never mentioned. And in my mind, I'm just like, something went wrong. Something is different behind the scenes than is being presented to the public.
Right.
And then the purity test happened on De La Rose. And then, like, a month or so later, I had heard from Tim, like, why he walked away. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't even realize he had walked away. Same with, Brett R. Smith. Didn't even realize he walked away until it's just like, it's been 2 months and I haven't seen these guys. Where'd they go? Because these were the conservative homies. And, eventually, now here we are today. And it's like, well, yeah, all the real conservatives were pushed out.
Yep.
And pushed out. And unfortunately, like I said, I went through all this in the fiction world, in horror fiction and bizarro fiction years ago, 2016, 17-ish. And I had been watching it happen since 2014. It just hadn't happened to me yet. And watching the internet purity testing, the internet sort of swarming onto individuals, the taking some one snapshot instance from someone's life out of context and using it as a tool to bury them forever. Mm-hmm. They are an awful person because of this one thing that happened one time out of context. They can never be forgiven for this. They can never apologize enough. We will never associate with them again. And in fact, we will try to make sure that their personal life is ruined, their professional life is ruined, and they can never work in this town again. Seeing that happen from and to conservatives, by conservatives, was one of the most disheartening things, because I thought, naively, again, I'm a very romantic guy. I believe in values, and I believe in integrity, and I've always believed that conservative-minded folks had more integrity and cared more about values than liberal-minded folks did. Liberal-minded folks being more about passions and emotions and contradicting themselves, what they said yesterday and what they'll say tomorrow, because they're overridden by their emotions more than their convictions. And then seeing all that happen with conservatives, in the comics movement really just made me be like, no, it's just everyone. Everyone fucking acts like this on the internet. This is just a fucking internet thing, or maybe it's a community
Yeah, but
thing.
here's the thing: is we were all lied to. All the people that did that, they weren't conservatives. It was the conservatives who were pissed off and outraged that it was happening. It turns out that all these people are authoritarian centrists,
Right.
and that's what they want. You know, they became a community that is absolutely unaccepting, and it's completely homogenized.
Right.
And that homogeny is able to be altered every day as long as the leader says this is what, you know, it's 1984. This is our enemy today. It's always been our enemy. It will always be our enemy until the leader says, oh, no, that's not the enemy anymore. Now this is the enemy.
Yeah, until the leader changes his mind tomorrow, which Ethan does constantly. And you know, his movement is his group of supporters get smaller and smaller by the day. And I think that
but they get more loyal by the day also. And I think that's the point. You would rather have, you know, I think 2,000 people who are blindly loyal to him and willing to go to any lengths, including, you know, obviously including threatening to go to people's homes to assault them if they won't help with the destruction of conservative careers. That's been proven. I'm about to prove it again in a court of law.
Oh yeah. There's also somebody going by my name on YouTube and Facebook, saying some really crazy shit. And I was made aware of this when Ben Henderson tweeted like, Matt V, I don't know who you are, but fuck you. And then I was like, what the hell did I do? And I ended up retweeting him, and he was like, no, I wasn't talking about you. I was like, well, this person's apparently trying to act like, give the impression they're doing that to you too, Crypto.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I've been stalked for
trying to smear people's names.
Because, I've been stalked for the better part of a year, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you.
This is the thing that they don't get. Like, you know, I don't engage. But like every 3 months, I just go over there and I thump them and I take something that they liked. And it's like, well, you know, you tweeted about me 40 times in the last month and we haven't communicated with each other in 4 months. Like, why are you tweeting about me every fucking day of your life, dude? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take something from you. I'm going to take Jean-Luc from you. I'm going to take Jesse Miller from you. I'm going to take Doug TenNapel from you. I'm going to take because you're trying to take from me. We could have just been, we didn't have to be friends. We don't have to be friends. Doesn't mean we have to be enemies.
Right.
But you know, that I haven't been given a choice. This is what I find really despicable, is these people have used my likeness, they've used Tim's likeness, they've used John's likeness to their brand. Okay, I didn't sign a contract. I didn't sign up to be a character on your show, to be the antagonist on your show. So you're going to have to compensate me for the destruction you have caused. And if you think it's a joke, you're about to wake up. Every time I come over there and I take something from them, they realize, oh my God, crypto. It's like, quit fucking with me. You want to make me into the CG Skeletor? Okay, I'm going to take something from you. Sorry, I get emotional.
No, and that's absolutely what you should do. And I did the same thing in horror and bizarro fiction when they did that to me. I was people started to feed me information about individuals that were high-ranking individuals in the hierarchy where Ethan and his friends exist in the Comicsgate community. And after enough time of being fucked with and them trying to demonetize my career and fuck with me in my personal life and make accusations about me and my own integrity as a man, I just started taking things from them. I started going, look at this police report from your, you know, how hypocritical is it to accuse me of shit out of thin air? I've never been arrested or accused of a crime in my life, but half the people that hang out in your inner circle have actual fucking police records. Let's wave these around and see how you react to that, and slowly watch these communities collapse until they no longer have. There used to be what's called the up there in the Portland area, what was known as the BizarroCon, the Bizarro Fiction annual convention took place at what is the big infamous hotel grounds in Portland?
The Mercury Hotel?
No, that's not it.
Oh, the Jupiter Hotel.
That's not it either. I guess there's a bunch. There's like a bunch of murals inside. I forget what the. I've been there twice. I forget what the name of the McManus. McManus.
We got a lot of hotels, buddy.
Yeah.
I think of the Jupiter because that's where the swingers like to go and leave the shades open.
Well, that's interesting. I might venture to that.
Yeah, you'd like it, man. With that pretty dick.
With that pretty dick of yours, that pretty small dick of yours. Anyway, they ended up having to cancel the convention this year because they lost so much support because of me. Because I decided I had to start taking back if they were going to try to take my career from me, I was going to take their community from them. And I don't think that that's an overreaction. I don't think that makes us villains. I think that it makes us fucking Rambo, dude. You push us and push us and push us until we're in the fucking forest by ourselves. And then you're still sending the fucking dogs after us to attack us in the forest. We're going to set traps and we're going to fucking annihilate you. That's what men do. That's what you do when you push us against the wall.
And this is the thing they don't understand. Is like, I don't know about where you're from, but where I'm from, if you instigate a person to the point where you've instigated them to where they want to punch you in the face, that's on you. Where I'm from, that's on you. And you get in trouble for that. Because once someone has blocked you on Facebook or on Twitter or on any social media, they've made it very clear they don't want contact with you. They don't want you talking about them. I'm not talking about anybody. Like me, it's always me clapping back.
Right.
And then they spurred and play the victim.
Right. Same thing they do to John Delaros. It's they push and push and push, and then as soon as he reacts back, they take it out of context and act like it came out of nowhere. And it's just, and I think that the good thing is, the positive thing out of all this is so many people have caught on, figured it out, understand the book, understand the game plan, and as soon as they try it, the dog pilers get dog piled and are exposed for how petty and manipulating that they're being, how manipulative that they're being. We've even got how long did we have to work on Edwin Boyette to get him to finally acknowledge the behavior of War Campaign? And
9 months.
Yeah, and he's to the point now where he fucking smashes the shit out of him.
Well, yeah, because once you take Rumble Terrier's black pill and you start to really look at things, and you're just like, wait a second, like, this is actually happening, and I've been a sucker. I've actually believed this.
I don't know if he was a sucker or if he thought. I could never figure Edwin out because he always seemed like a genuine dude, but he ignored.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and it's better to say that you were a sucker for something than to say that you were willfully ignorant.
Yeah,
I'd rather just, I got duped. That's the way I look at it.
That's probably why so many people remain loyal at this point, is because they don't want to publicly admit that they've been fooled. I've done it. It fucking sucks. You feel stupid.
All of us. If you go back to sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what's even dumber? It's not admitting you're fucking wrong and you continue to support a fucking cult leader.
100%. And if you go back to, first of all, I never did throw this plug out there, and I meant to throw this plug out at the beginning of the show. If you're not following Crypto Comics on YouTube, I've put a link down in the description below. Crypto Comics, absolutely. If you take anything away from this stream, it's a subscription to Crypto Comics on YouTube, because Matt is a comic book historian and does some of the best comic book reviews I've ever seen on the internet. Period. Period. And if you go back to Matt's comic book reviews from last year, he was so fucking excited about Comicsgate. He was so enthusiastic about this movement and about the idea of crowdfunding comics as an alternative to the mainstream destruction of Marvel and DC by the sort of liberal tastemakers. And we've all, in our own way, had to admit that we were wrong. And you can go back to a point in all of our histories where we were so enthusiastic and supportive of this community, only to have to eventually say, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. I'm a grown man, and I was totally taken in by something that wasn't real.
No, we were taken in by something that was real and then turned into something that wasn't, what it originally the truth. First wave Comicsgate was pure, man. And I'm not in support of harassing anyone. Like I'm in my 30s. I don't have time to harass people. I find it bizarre that other people in their 30s and 40s do have that kind of time. And so, I've never had a beef. I've never said a bad thing to Megs or Gail or anybody. I like communicating with Eric Larson because I grew up reading Eric Larson, and I have a lot of appreciation for him. I don't have to agree with people 100% of the time. I'm not a libertarian or a far leftist. If I can find stuff that we agree about 60 or 70% of the time, odds are we can probably be pretty good friends.
Yeah, I have a far left friend that came out as trans a couple of years ago, and she and I can sit on a live stream for 3.5 hours and talk 80s B movies, punk rock, and so many subjects that we're both passionate about that you don't ever have to, like, the internet has ruined us as far as if we have one thing that we don't have in common, we're not supposed to be friends anymore. It's like most people have so many things in common with each other that we should all be able to get along far more than we don't get along.
Yes, I agree 100%. But,
Great.
for some reason, this cultural climate is now, about what makes us different and how we can use that against each other and how we can use that to gain favor for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And now that's extended into every single facet of life. And that's very unfortunate because that is sowing the seeds of destruction. I mean, if you think about it, like if a civil war, like we're already in a civil war in this country. It's just a Cold War right now. If this shit goes hot, like, could you imagine like the chaos on every street corner?
And it's so sad because, again, we have so many more reasons. We live in the greatest technological time to be alive. Nobody's going hungry. We can learn at a pace that we've never been able to learn at before, and we are going to spill each other's bloods in the streets over internet drama, is what it's going to come down to, over memes on the internet that make us emotionally angry at each other, when we should be celebrating and fucking holding hands, like Michael Jackson wanted us to in the 80s, and fucking spread love across the globe, man. We live in such great times and treat each other like worse than ever.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad. What a shitty stream, Kevin.
Yeah, I think we've gone well over.
My wrists, man.
No, but let's end it on a high note. I think that indie comics is still stronger than ever, and I think that our ability to create wonderful stories in comic book form is more viable and available to more people today than it ever has been. We don't need Comicsgate. We don't need a hashtag designations in order to be successful on a large scale or a small scale. My comic books are almost never going to make more than $1,000 on my Indiegogo campaigns before I take them out on the road and do the convention circuit, and I am beautifully fine with that. That is because it's all scalable. I do all the writing, illustrating, and all of that, and so I don't need to pay myself. I don't need to pay a bunch of different creators up front before the project gets greenlit. Before I can make my stuff. So if I make $1,000 off a comic book campaign, that's $1,000 in my pocket I didn't have before.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I want to say also, like, if you were one of those idealistic first wave Comicsgaters, like that first wave Comicsgate, it still exists. Like, I think everybody's kind of waking up. All the actual conservatives are waking up and saying, well, we're all still here.
We're all still here, brother.
Comicsgate basically served its purpose. It brought us all together. And now, of course, another faction of Comicsgate is going to have to be mortal enemies. But that's not going to last. I'm doing my best to put an end to that right now.
And 99% of those guys, 99% of those guys don't even make comic books anyway.
Yeah, and
they're not part of the culture. Like when you're talking about first wave Comicsgaters, you're talking almost exclusively about a group of creators. And that's awesome that they all can get together and
I'm talking about a group of fans too, like Kenzie, Booster, all these people, DeWolf, Chester Busby, like all these people are still together, and we all still talk. Like I talk to these people every day of my life, and so the only thing holding us back, I think, is people who survive off of internet drama and creating feuds. And I think more and more fans are waking up to this fact and realizing that maybe people didn't from the big two because of their political beliefs. Now, I believe Mitch got ousted because of his political beliefs. But I think that other people who claim that aren't. I think they're just massive assholes. And I think if you talk to some people on the other side of the aisle, you realize like, yeah.
They just have toxic fucking personalities, regardless of their
no one wants
beliefs.
to work with those people. But there is another section, I think, where it's just like, I think because of their beliefs, their deeply held beliefs, they were silently blackballed. I think that's true about Mike Miller. He's a nice enough guy. I could work with Mike. I could work with Mike 7 days a week. He's a nice guy. I would think so. I think he just got a bum rap because he, drew a picture of Donald Trump. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have found the indie comics, the conservative indie comics community, because the indie fiction world just isn't really big enough to house very many conservatives. They stay in the closet. They sort of toe the line and they stay quiet. And when guys like me get attacked, they never come out in support. And here in indie comics, the comic book fans are so much bigger. There's so many more comic book fans, and they spend so much more money that the indie comics pool is much bigger, and there is a place at the table for us conservatives, and it allows for people to come out in support of each other in a way that in other artistic fields, other entertainment fields, that's not possible. And so I love being right here, and I plan on making comic books for a good long time because the people that I get to associate with now are actually in line with my values, and I don't have to hide them, and I don't expect that the people that I associate with are going to hide their values when it comes time to help defend each other.
Yeah, here's the truly ironic part. You have these people that say conservatives are closed-minded and this and that and the other. And it's like, we started this stream by talking about the movie you made where you wiggled your dicks in front of everybody's faces. I think conservatives are the most open-minded people of all because they're always willing to change their mind and evolve their opinions on subjects. That's why you don't see that homogeny within the Republican Party, because you have these different factions that have different beliefs, and they're, constantly butting heads.
Absolutely.
They're not, step blockers. This is not like, a communist where everyone has to believe the exact same thing. And if you don't, we're going to eat you alive. And the revolution always turns in on itself and eats itself.
Absolutely.
And so we're still going to be here even after the Comicsgate revolution goes down like a 747 with engine failure, which it's doing brother. Right now. Like when people are upset because people like to tweet online, I'd say that's, a nail in the coffin of a phony ass movement that already served its purpose 9 months ago when it brought together, all these different people. And I love it, man. I love Pope Fire. I love John De La Rose. I love Tim Lim. I love Brett Smith. I love Mitch Breitweiser. I love Mike Miller. I love Edwin Boyette. I love the Needle Mover Society. I love Doug Garrett. I love all these people. Speaking of Doug Garrett, man, can we talk about Lone Wolf a little bit?
Do it.
I'm really curious because I've got Lone Wolf fever. Some people like Ted Nugent and they get cat scratch fever. I like Doug Garrett and I got Lone Wolf fever. Lone Wolf stories planned already to write. I'm afraid it's so much that Doug's just gonna be like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm just gonna be like, shit, man, because I just keep telling him like, I got this new idea for a story, and just like, shit, like I care about this dude's character this much. I can't believe it, and I'm in love with this character. And I really hope people will check out Legends of the Lone Wolf because Skinny worked his butt off. He's still working his butt off. I don't think they're finished with the Banjo Man quite yet. You still got a little bit to do, right, Skinny?
No. That's completely done. I might do a couple of tweaks that are completely optional, just because I have some free time. But no, it's been done for a while.
Cool.
And if you listen,
I am lettering one of the stories. I think I'm lettering James Grant's story for the actual book. So I am working on that though.
If you enjoyed this stream, if you enjoyed hearing from Skinny and Crypto Comics,
Kevin, hold on. Kevin, why haven't you written a Lone Wolf book yet?
I don't know, man. I was invited to do so, and when I sat down to do it, I was like, I'm going to bring that Strangeville flavor to this character, and I just couldn't come up with anything. I've never written a story about a Native American before, and I couldn't find the correct Strangeville take on the character, and so I'm still simmering with it. I'm still sitting and wondering what the best way to tell the weirdest. Because if I just I have to toot my own horn here. If I was to write a lone wolf story, it would be the weirdest fucking lone wolf story anyone had ever and will ever write.
What if maybe down the line we did Banjo Man Goes to Strange?
Dude, I'm open to anything. I'm open to all of it. I love all you fellas. I love all you fellas, and I would love to work with you guys. I sort of isolated myself here to do my Strangeville universe, but I'm open to working with everybody, and I think you guys are all fantastic. And again, I always make this comparison. I spent so many years in the indie fiction world where I basically had to hold my tongue and just hang out with these insufferable, depressed, liberal nihilists that hated everything and complained about society all the time, but did nothing to move it along or forward it in any meaningful way. And I've gotten so fired up being around a bunch of people that have the same values I do, that have the same spark and love for life, love for their culture, love for their fellow man and woman, and love for this entertainment medium. And I would love to be able to work with any of you guys in any capacity, because it's just going to be so much fun and full of so much positive influence and energy.
Yeah, but
I'm.
You see, I like a tweet later on down the road that you don't like.
Yeah, right.
We got to
I give a fuck. Have you ever seen me do any? I don't. As Crypto said earlier, I'm a man. I'm almost 40 years old. I can't imagine having a secret identity on Twitter and trying to talk about myself in third person to hide my secret identity and do ops on people that have me blocked on my other. Dude, I work too hard and too much, and I'm too old to give a fuck. I don't care what anyone does or thinks about anything. I just want to make cool comics, and I hope that I get the opportunity to put them in the hands of fans that laugh at my crude, weird, obscene humor. That's all I give a fuck about.
Yeah. Well, can I say alts are for fags?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Alts are for fags. Let's put it in the chat. If I put it in the chat, is that going to get us banned?
I don't know. I wouldn't risk it.
I wouldn't do that.
All right. Well, I was going to do it anyway, but both of you guys are like, don't you dare put alts are for fags.
I mean, I'm not going to let people police what I say.
Alts are for people who are too pussy to say their real name.
You're right. As I've always said, if you're too afraid if your identity is too precious and your family culture and life is too fragile and precious to have out on the internet, then don't be a fucking asshole on the internet.
Yeah. And if you're going to be an asshole, at least stand by your convictions. My real name's my Twitter handle.
Yeah, exactly.
I got nothing to hide. You may not like what I fucking say, but
yeah, it's hard to dox somebody that has nothing to hide.
Yep.
Now, if I had a pretty dick, I wouldn't have the ugly one I got now. I have from an ugly dick.
Legends of the Lone Wolf funding now on Kickstarter. The link is below. And Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun. That launches on October 1st on Kickstarter, right, Crypto?
It does. Everybody who's watching, please turn out the first day. We need all the help we can get. It's my first comic book that I'm actually publishing, and I have literally, Kevin, like this probably sounds crazy, but I have like 15 feature-length screenplays that I've polished and worked on until I knew they were perfect. And that's how I learned how to write extremely well. And, now I've been able to make money actually writing for I've written a feature film, co-written a feature film, and I am ready to publish as much as I possibly can. I can put out 4 stories a month. Like I could make 4 comic books a month for the next 18 months. And that's without writing anything new. I'm already right there. And these are all like solid stories. Now, it might not be a genre that you necessarily care for, but I guarantee I have 4 or 5 stories that will get any excited. People want to come back, even if it's not, maybe luchadors aren't your thing. Well, the next comic, it's a fantasy film, it's a fantasy comic, excuse me, sword and sorcery, science fiction, westerns. I can do it all. I just don't do romantic comedies, but really everything I write is a romantic comedy secretly.
Listen, as I just put on the screen, I believe in crypto. If you guys aren't subscribed to his channel, I put the link down below. Subscribe to Crypto Comics. Watch his comic book reviews. This dude is the business. He's the future of comics, indie comics. I believe in him. I'm going to support him all the way to the finish line. You can mark it down here today, September 25th, 2019. This guy's got my seal of approval. Kevin Strange gives Crypto Comics 100% of his belief. You got my dollars. You got my enthusiasm. I can't wait to see what you put out, brother. As a fellow film nerd, as a guy who also cut his teeth writing screenplays, I can tell how when I talk to people, I used to do writing workshops, and I would tell the kids in the writing workshops that if your story doesn't burn a hole in your chest to be told and to have people experience this story, and if you don't and have a profound change come over them because of the lessons learned within the story, then you haven't found the right story to tell yet. And I can tell crypto, you're burning, you're overflowing with the passion and enthusiasm to tell your stories, and that is infectious. You're going to notice as you put these comic books out that a whole new generation of comic book creators are going to come up in your wake and say that you influenced them and that your enthusiasm has created a passion and a burning passion in them to tell their own stories, and that's going to be your greatest reward. You might make $1 million, you might make $5 million adapting these comic books back into movies. They started as screenplays, turned into comics. Hollywood might buy them, option them, adapt them into movies. You might become a millionaire, a famous celebrity. But the thing that's going to stick with you, take it from me and my own experience, the thing that will stick with you more than anything, that's worth more than money, that's worth more than fame, that's worth more than accolades from your peers, is when you have a fan come up to you at a convention and tell you that they make comic books because of you, because of your comics that they read, and the enthusiasm and the burning passion you put into your comics. Amen. That's all I have to say.
Amen. I'm just wow. Thank you. Whoop whoop.
Fellas, we got to go. We're way over.
Alrighty. Have a good one, you two peoples.
Click those links. Back Legends of the Lone Wolf. Get ready to back Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun next week, October 1st on Kickstarter. I'll be there. I'll be putting my money where my mouth is. I'll be promoting that all over the social medias. And you guys are welcome back to Strangeville anytime. I love you, fellas. And,
hey, you forgot to plug one important book.
What's that?
Your book.
Dead Shit, The Talisman of Transmutation, the comic book adaptation of my 2007 Trauma Dance official selection, Dead Shit. The Talisman of Transmutation is 120 full color pages in 3 issues, a 32-page first issue, 36-page second issue, and a double-sized 52-page third issue. Funding now on Indiegogo. The link is down below. You can buy the first issue for just $8, but the best deal, the first issue is $8, second issue is $8, third issue is $10 individually. But the best deal is to do the $30 bundle where you get all 3 issues plus a Hack Movies DVD of your choice, all for $30. That's the best value. That's funding through October 17th. We have great stretch goals that are going to be coming down the pipe if we get funded. At the $600 level, everybody gets a badass 11x17 full color poster of the Talisman of Dead Shit, the Talisman of Transmutation, all the main characters together in this really action-packed epic scene. At the $800 level, we get a set of 5 trading cards that are like those old school Marvel cards that have like a little bio and the power levels of all the characters. But since it's Strangeville, it's like how big their dick is. and all kinds of dumb stuff. My buddy Jeremy comes in here and says, the one person who disliked this is going in my own personal human centipede. I guess we got a dislike. I guess some of the war campaign came over and threw a little no at us, a little upside down at us. That's okay.
At the demons.
Yeah, bring it on. That's fine.
I couldn't over people on the internet this much that you have to go dislike the video they're making.
I know, it's ridiculous. And then if we hit $1,000 goal,
hey, I want to rewind for a second. You said that something was an official selection of Trauma Dance.
Yeah, Dead Shit was an official selection of Trauma Dance New Mexico, which is a sister show to the main New Jersey Trauma Dance. So Trauma Dance New Mexico selected Dead Shit to play at their festival in 2007. I've actually played at a ton of film festivals all across the country, but Trauma Dance is my favorite, for obvious reasons. So I plug that.
I worked with Lloyd on a movie called. I worked with Lloyd Kaufman on a movie shot here in Portland called Stripperland, and that is like one of the highlights of my career because I am a big Lloyd fan.
Yeah, well, obviously, Trauma is a huge influence on me. The Toxic Avenger, the movie that actually pushed me to become a filmmaker, to take those screenplays that I had been working on and actually just fucking do it and go at it, no budget style, and just really refuse to take no for an answer and make my own damn movie. Was watching the feature length behind the scenes making of Toxic Avenger 4, Citizen Toxie. It was the documentary makes the film shoot look like absolute chaos, and it makes Lloyd Kaufman look like the most inept filmmaker of all time. Like he had no idea what the fuck was going on with his own movie on any given day, and he was completely unprepared and had no idea what he was doing. And it was one of those things I told you where I've met Lloyd. I've had Lloyd do intros for some of my movies. On my DVDs, like special introduction by Lloyd Kaufman, and I told him you made me think it was possible to do what you do, and that's what I try to bring to my own fans. Is I try to show them that, like what you said, whenever you went to watch my the behind the scenes on my movies, I make sure to put those behind the scenes bonus features on all my movies because I want kids to know that it's possible for very little money and just a lot of ambition and tenacity. You can make your own damn movie, write your own damn novel, write and illustrate your own damn comic book, make your own music. You can do anything you want to in the entertainment industry. There is nothing to stop you. And every decade it gets easier and easier to do.
I am an official graduate of Lloyd Kaufman's Make Your Own Damn Movie Film School. And I would recommend to any young filmmaker that they go onto eBay right now, buy the 5-disc box set, off your own damn movie box set. And you're going to want to watch each disc 5 times because it is literally, you are being given the opportunity to work on a film. And Lloyd shoots behind the scenes stuff for all of his films. And it's not the fluff pieces that you're used to seeing in behind the scenes features on releases from the major studios. You're going to actually see everything that goes wrong, like Kevin's saying. You see everything that went wrong on set so that you can learn from it. And that is invaluable. I mean, it literally is like you worked on a movie then. Produce your own damn movie.
I'm featured in this book. Lloyd himself doesn't talk about me, but one of my buddies that's also a filmmaker is in here talking about, I forget what page it's on, is in here talking about his movie, and he threw a plug for Cockhammer in this book. Thanks to him for doing that. His name's Richard Taylor, and he has a feature film called Adam the Amazing Zombie Killer, and so I'm actually featured in a Lloyd Kaufman book. Just a plug for my movie.
Amen.
Yeah, I'm done, guys. We could do this all day long, but let's keep it.
Okay.
We're at about an hour and a half. Let's keep it digestible.
Let me just remind people: there's 5 days left to pick up Legends of the Lone Wolf on Kickstarter.com. 5 days left. Doug only needs to raise, I think it's just a little over $100, and he will hit that $500 goal and secure those funds. We need to grab that bag like we're Andrew Yang. Please, if you haven't backed Legends of the Lone Wolf, get it on Kickstarter before it runs out, because that's $500 that everybody on this team could really use. Our dream is to send Mior a grand, living over in Malaysia, who's drawn the 38-page story I wrote. And, I mean, he's busting his ass on it. And he's doing it you know, because he wants to succeed in the comic book industry. It's not for money. It's to have the opportunity to get published. And he's working his butt off more than anyone would. Someone to work for free, but we're all working for free on this thing. It's a labor of love. So please, 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 please pick up Legends of the Lone Wolf on Kickstarter.com.
Yeah,
That link-
and if you hit 500, you get the Banjo Man ash can.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
And that link is down below in the description. So go ahead and click that link, hit that Kickstarter, fund that comic. You get both these two gentlemen's wonderful stories. And that's going to do it. We're going to wrap it, gang. I had a lot of fun today, and we'll do this again. Still tons to talk about. Crypto, we didn't even get into your comic book historian, your comic book history channel on YouTube, which is fantastic.
Hey, that just reminded me. Starting, even though I'm launching a comic book on October 1st, starting October 3rd is Rob Liefeld Appreciation Month on Crypto Comics. Every day of October, beginning on the 3rd, we are going to review a Rob Liefeld comic book.
And these are A plus reviews. He does great reviews. Go check him out. There's a link below in the description to his channel. If you take anything away from this stream today, it's that you subscribed to Crypto Comics on YouTube.
And that Kevin has a pretty dick. Remember that, ladies.
Pretty
guys,
small.
Fellas too.
All right. All right, guys. We're out of here.
Later.
Peace.
Whoop whoop.